June 7, 1992. Springfield, Missouri. A city of 140,000 people in the heart of the Ozarks, where summer mornings smell like honeysuckle and the biggest news is usually high school football scores. At approximately 4 p.m., Janice McCall calls the Springfield Police Department to report 3 women missing from a home on East Delmar Street. Her 18-year-old daughter Stacy, Stacy's best friend, 19-year-old Suzie Streeter, and Suzie's mother, 47-year-old Sherrill Levitt. All 3 vanished sometime between 2:15 a.m. and 9 a.m. No signs of forced entry. No evidence of struggle. All personal belongings, cars, purses, keys, money, left behind. A small Yorkshire Terrier left alone in the house, unharmed but agitated. The only clues: a broken porch light globe, 2 disturbing phone calls that morning from an unknown male making sexual remarks, and a message on the answering machine. A message that, according to those who heard it, sounded strange and possibly contained information about what happened. That message was accidentally erased before police could listen to it. For over 33 years, investigators have pursued more than 5,000 tips, conducted extensive searches across rural Missouri, and investigated multiple persons of interest. The FBI joined the case within days. National media covered it extensively. America's Most Wanted featured it. Psychics offered visions. Anonymous callers claimed knowledge. But Sherrill, Suzie, and Stacy have never been found. Not their bodies. Not their clothing. Not a single piece of physical evidence definitively explaining what happened when 3 women disappeared from a locked house on graduation night. Sound. Whined through trees, distant thunder. What makes this case so haunting isn't just the mystery of how 3 people vanish without a trace from a residential neighborhood. It's the cruel irony that the answer may have been handed to investigators on an answering machine tape and was destroyed before anyone realized its significance. It's the ground-penetrating radar scan in 2007 that detected 3 anomalies under a hospital parking garage, anomalies shaped exactly like burial sites, that police refused to excavate despite decades of no other leads. It's the convicted offender who told reporters in 1997, "I know what happened to them. Their bodies will never be recovered." But authorities say his claims lack credibility. It's the mother who, 33 years later, still celebrates her daughter's birthday every April 23rd, baking a cake that no one will eat, keeping hope alive when logic says hope died 3 decades ago. 3 women. 1 graduation night. 0 answers. And a deleted message that might have solved everything. The Springfield 3. The message that could have solved everything. Unsolved. Unforgotten. And buried under secrets no one will excavate. To understand the mystery of the Springfield 3, you must first understand who they were. Not as victims in a case file, but as people living ordinary lives that should have continued long past June 6, 1992. Sherrill Elizabeth Levitt, born November 1, 1944, in Los Angeles, California. Sherrill was 47 years old in the summer of 1992, a single mother who had carved out a successful career as a cosmetologist in Springfield. She was known throughout the community for her skill with hair, particularly her ability to create the big, voluminous styles that defined early 90s aesthetics. She was 5 feet tall exactly, weighing about 110 pounds, with short bleached blonde hair that she kept naturally curly. Distinctive freckles dotted her neck and upper chest. She had a warm smile and a reputation for being kind to her clients, many of whom had been coming to her for years. Sherrill lived at 1717 East Delmar Street, a modest single-story house in a quiet residential neighborhood. The house was her pride. She had been renovating it in her spare time, painting rooms, refinishing furniture, making it into the home she and her daughter deserved. On the evening of June 6th, she had been discussing paint colors with a friend, planning to varnish an armoire in her bedroom. She was a devoted mother to her daughter Suzie, and the two had a relationship that friends described as closer than most mothers and daughters. They weren't just family, they were best friends. Sherrill had raised Suzie largely on her own after separating from Suzie's father years earlier, and the bond between them was unshakable. If Sherrill had lived, She would be 80 years old today. She would have grandchildren she never got to meet, from a daughter who never got to grow old. Suzie Elizabeth Streeter. Born March 9, 1973, in Springfield. Suzie was 19 years old, standing 5 feet 2 inches and weighing 102 pounds, with shoulder-length bleach blonde hair and brown eyes. She had distinguishing marks: a 3.5-inch scar on her upper right forearm, a small mole in the left corner of her mouth, and pierced ears, her left ear pierced twice. Suzie was bubbly, outgoing, and full of life. She loved music and dancing. She worked at a local tanning salon and was known for being friendly to everyone. Friends described her as someone who lit up a room, who made people feel comfortable, who had that rare gift of making strangers feel like old friends within minutes of meeting her. She had recently moved back in with her mother after living elsewhere for a period. The house on Delmar Street was small but comfortable, and Suzie was excited about her new king-sized waterbed that had just been delivered. She looked forward to showing it to her best friend Stacy. Suzie graduated from Kickapoo High School on June 6, 1992, a milestone she had worked toward for years. The ceremony was held at 4 p.m. at the Hammond Student Center at Southwest Missouri State University. Her mother Sherrill was there, beaming with pride as her daughter walked across the stage to receive her diploma. If Suzie had lived, she would be 52 years old today. She might have pursued college, career, marriage, children, all the ordinary milestones that define most people's lives. Instead, she remains forever 19, frozen in time. Stacy Kathleen McCall. Born April 23, 1974. Stacy was 18 years old, standing 5 feet 3 inches and weighing 120 pounds, with long dark blonde hair and light-colored eyes. She had freckles scattered across her face and a distinctive dimple in the middle of her chin, a feature that made her smile memorable to anyone who saw it. Stacy was Suzie's childhood friend, the kind of friend you make in elementary school and keep for life. They had grown up together, shared secrets, celebrated birthdays, navigated the confusing terrain of adolescence side by side. They were inseparable. Stacy lived with her parents, Janice and Stuart McCall, in a loving home where she was cherished as an only child. Her mother Janice would later describe her as responsible and thoughtful, the kind of daughter who always called when she said she would, who never left people worried about where she was. She also graduated from Kickapoo High School on June 6, walking across that same stage with her best friend, both of them grinning with the excitement of young women whose whole lives stretched out before them. They had plans: water parks, parties, college applications, jobs, adventures. The kind of plans 18-year-olds make when they believe they're invincible. If Stacy had lived, she would be 51 years old today. Her mother Janice would be able to call her on the phone, visit her, meet her children. Instead, Janice celebrates birthdays and holidays alone, keeping Stacy's memory alive through photographs and memories that grow more distant each year. These were not careless young women who put themselves in dangerous situations. They were not involved in drugs or crime. They had no known enemies. They were simply two recent graduates celebrating the end of high school, and a mother who was proud of her daughter. Three ordinary people living ordinary lives in a small Missouri city where everyone knew everyone and doors were left unlocked. Within hours, they would be gone. And 33 years later, no one knows why. June 6, 1992. A Saturday. Graduation day. The ceremony at 4 p.m. was everything you'd expect. Proud parents with cameras, students in caps and gowns fidgeting in folding chairs, speeches about following dreams and embracing the future. When Suzie Streeter's name was called, Sherrill Levitt cheered from the audience, her pride visible to everyone around her. When Stacy McCall received her diploma, Janice McCall dabbed at tears, overwhelmed with emotion at seeing her daughter reach this milestone. After the ceremony, the school had organized an alcohol-free lock-in inside the building, an event designed to keep graduates safe and supervised until 8 a.m. the next morning. But Suzie and Stacy, like many of their classmates, had other plans. They wanted to party with friends, celebrate properly, have the kind of night they'd remember forever. They would remember it forever, but not in the way they expected. The evening was filled with the chaotic joy of graduation parties. The girls attended multiple gatherings, moving from house to house in a friend's neighborhood, laughing with classmates, taking pictures, soaking in the sense of accomplishment and freedom that comes with finishing high school. The original plan was for Suzie, Stacy, and their friend Janelle Kirby to spend the night at Janelle's house in Battlefield, a suburb just outside Springfield. From there, they would wake up early and drive to Whitewater, a water park where they planned to spend Sunday celebrating. But plans changed. When the girls arrived at Janelle's house around 2 a.m., they discovered it was crowded with out-of-town relatives who had come for Janelle's graduation. The house was full, sleeping space was limited, and the idea of squeezing 3 more people into the chaos seemed overwhelming. Suzie had a solution. Follow me to my house. Her mother's house on Delmar Street was quiet, comfortable, and Suzie was excited to show Stacy her new king-sized waterbed. The two friends could have a proper sleepover, just the two of them, and still meet up with Janelle in the morning to go to Whitewater. Janelle's mother, Kathy Kirby, was in bed but heard the conversation. She would later tell police that she distinctly heard Suzie say, "Follow me to my house," and Stacy replied, "Okay, I will." The two girls left Janelle's house in separate vehicles, Suzie in her car, Stacy in hers. The drive from Battlefield to the Delmar Street house was short, maybe 15 minutes on empty roads in the early morning darkness. They arrived at the house sometime around 2:15 a.m. We know this because their cars were found parked outside the next morning. We know this because their clothing from the parties, jeans, shirts, shoes, were found neatly folded on Suzie's bed, suggesting they changed into pajamas or sleeping clothes after arriving. We know this because Sherrill's bed showed evidence of having been slept in, meaning she was home and likely already asleep when the girls arrived. What we don't know is what happened next. Sherrill Levitt had spent a quiet evening at home. The last confirmed contact with her was at approximately 11:15 p.m. on June 6th, when she spoke on the phone with a friend about painting furniture. After that call, she presumably got ready for bed, expecting her daughter to come home at some point during the night. The house was secure, doors locked, windows closed. This was a safe neighborhood in a safe city in 1992, before the internet made everyone paranoid, before true crime podcasts taught people to fear every shadow. People in Springfield left their doors unlocked. They trusted their neighbors. They believed bad things happened somewhere else, to someone else. Sometime between 2:15 a.m., when Suzie and Stacy are believed to have arrived at the house, and 9 a.m., when friends first began trying to contact them, 3 women disappeared. No screams disturbed the neighbors. No sounds of struggle echoed through the quiet street. No cars were heard screeching away. The neighborhood slept peacefully, unaware that something impossible was happening in the modest house at 1717 East Delmar Street. By sunrise on June 7th, Sherrill, Suzie, and Stacy were gone, and the only witnesses were a broken porch light and a Yorkshire Terrier named Cinnamon who couldn't tell anyone what she saw. Sunday, June 7th, 1992. A beautiful summer morning in Springfield. Clear skies, warm temperatures, the kind of day perfect for a water park. Around 8 a.m., Janelle Kirby wakes up at her family's home in Battlefield. She's excited about the day ahead. Whitewater with her best friends, celebrating graduation, soaking in the sun. She expects Suzie and Stacy to show up soon so they can all drive together. But 8 a.m. comes and goes. No Suzie. No Stacy. By 9 a.m., Janelle starts calling the Delmar Street house. The phone rings, and rings, and rings. No answer. She's not worried yet. It was a late night. Her friends are probably sleeping in. She'll try again in a bit. 9:30 a.m. Still no answer. 10 a.m. Still no answer. By noon, Janelle is getting concerned. This isn't like Stacy, who's known for being responsible and punctual. If they overslept, surely they'd be awake by now. If plans changed, surely they would have called. Around 12:20 p.m., Janelle and her boyfriend Mike Henson decide to drive to the Delmar Street house. They'll wake up their friends, give them grief for oversleeping, and still have time to get to Whitewater for the afternoon. The house is on a quiet residential street lined with modest single-family homes. Trees provide shade. Lawns are neatly maintained. Nothing looks unusual or disturbing until they reach the front porch. The broken light. The glass globe covering the porch light is shattered. Broken glass litters the porch, glinting in the midday sun. But the bulb itself is intact, still screwed into the socket, undamaged. Mike Henson, trying to be helpful, grabs a broom from inside the house and sweeps up the glass. He doesn't want Janelle, who's barefoot, to cut herself. This seemingly innocent gesture will later be identified by investigators as one of the first instances of evidence contamination that would plague the case. The broken glass might have contained fingerprints, DNA, blood traces, evidence that could have identified who broke it and when. By sweeping it up and disposing of it, Mike unwittingly destroyed potential clues. But in the moment, it just looks like a porch light that got knocked by accident. Nothing sinister. Inside the house, the front door is unlocked. Janelle and Mike enter, calling out for their friends. Suzie? Stacy? You guys up? No response. The house is quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that feels wrong when you're expecting to find people home. They walk through the living room. Everything looks normal. Tidy, even. 3 purses are lined up neatly on the floor. Sherrill's, Suzie's, and Stacy's. Inside Sherrill's purse, approximately $900 in cash. Her cigarettes and lighter are on a table nearby. Keys are present. Wallet's intact. In Suzie's bedroom, clothing from the previous night is folded on the bed. Not thrown haphazardly like clothes discarded after a long night. Folded neatly, as if someone took care in putting them away. Sherrill's bedroom also looks undisturbed. Her bed appears to have been slept in, covers pulled back, pillow indented. But Sherrill isn't there. The family dog, a Yorkshire Terrier named Cinnamon, is in the house. She's alive and unharmed, but she seems agitated, barking more than usual, pacing nervously. The disturbing calls. While Janelle and Mike are in the house, the phone rings. Janelle answers, expecting it to be Suzie or Stacy calling from wherever they ended up. Instead, an unknown male voice makes sexual remarks. The exact nature of the comments isn't fully disclosed in police reports, but they're described as obscene and disturbing. The caller uses crude language, making inappropriate innuendos. Janelle, confused and uncomfortable, hangs up. Immediately, the phone rings again. She answers. It's the same voice. More obscene comments. She hangs up again, this time feeling genuinely unsettled. Who is calling? Is this connected to her friend's absence? She remembers that Suzie had complained about receiving prank calls at the house since moving in with her mother a few months earlier. Maybe this is just more of the same, crude teenage boys thinking they're funny. Janelle and Mike look around the house once more, increasingly puzzled. Where could 3 women have gone, leaving behind their cars, their purses, their money, their keys, their dog? Maybe they got a ride somewhere with friends. Maybe there was an emergency and they left in a hurry. Maybe they'll be back any minute with a perfectly logical explanation. Janelle and Mike leave the house, assuming their friends will show up eventually. Throughout the afternoon, Janelle tries calling again. No answer. As Sunday afternoon turns to evening, concern grows into alarm. Stacy's mother, Janice McCall, has been trying to reach her daughter all day. Stacy had promised to call before leaving for Whitewater. That call never came. Phone calls to the Delmar Street house go unanswered. By 7:30 p.m., Janice can't take the uncertainty anymore. She drives to the Delmar Street house herself, hoping to find her daughter there with a reasonable explanation for not calling. The house is dark. Cars are still in the driveway. All 3 vehicles that should be there are there. No lights are on inside. Janice uses a spare key to enter. The scene inside is exactly as Janelle described it earlier. Purses on the floor, personal items present, dog alone in the house. No sign of the 3 women. But Janice notices something Janelle didn't focus on. Stacy's clothes from the graduation parties are neatly folded. Some items are missing, suggesting Stacy changed clothes at some point. But where is she now? And where are Suzie and Sherrill? Janice checks the answering machine, hoping for a message. There is one, a message that had been left sometime earlier. She presses play. What she hears, according to later reports, is strange. The exact contents of the message have never been publicly disclosed because the message was erased before police could listen to it. Answering machines in 1992 typically used tape cassettes that recorded over themselves after messages were played once. Some accounts suggest the erasure was automatic. Others suggest Janice accidentally hit the wrong button while trying to save the message. Whatever the case, the message is gone. Janice feels a cold dread settle over her. Something is very wrong. This isn't her daughter running late or forgetting to call. This is something else. At approximately 8 p.m., more than 16 hours after the women were last known to be alive, Janice McCall calls the Springfield Police Department to report 3 missing persons. The Springfield Police Department responds to Janice McCall's call, but there's a problem. In 1992, there were no Amber Alerts, no immediate protocols for missing adults, no presumption that a disappearance equals foul play until evidence proves otherwise. The initial response treats this as a missing persons case, concerning, certainly, but not necessarily criminal. Adults have the right to go where they please without telling anyone. Maybe the women decided on a spontaneous road trip. Maybe they're visiting friends and forgot to call. Maybe there's a simple explanation. But as officers arrive at the Delmar Street house and begin processing the scene, that optimistic interpretation starts to crumble. What they find: no signs of forced entry. All doors and windows intact. No damage to locks. No obvious signs of struggle inside the house. Furniture in place. Nothing overturned or broken. All 3 women's personal belongings present. Cars, purses, money, keys, cigarettes, identification. Sherrill's bed appears to have been slept in. Clothing from the graduation parties neatly folded on Suzie's bed. The broken porch light globe, the only visible sign of anything unusual. The dog left alone but unharmed. The deleted answering machine message that may have contained crucial information. What they don't find: the 3 women. Any note explaining where they went. Any signs of blood or violence. Any indication of where they might be. The scene is baffling. It suggests abduction, 3 people removed from a house against their will. But abductions typically leave evidence: signs of struggle, broken objects, disturbed furniture, screaming that neighbors hear. There's none of that here. It's as if 3 women simply evaporated between 2:15 a.m. and 9 a.m., leaving behind only their belongings and a broken light. As police begin their investigation, they make a disturbing discovery. By the time they arrive, approximately 10 to 20 people have already been through the house. Janelle and Mike. Janice McCall. Other concerned friends and family members who came looking for the women throughout the day. These well-meaning visitors have contaminated the crime scene. If it is a crime scene, they've touched surfaces, moved objects, swept up glass, walked through rooms, potentially destroying fingerprints, disturbing trace evidence, and making it nearly impossible for forensic teams to distinguish between evidence left by the perpetrator and evidence left by visitors. Moreover, several people have attempted to tidy up the house while waiting for the women to return. Ashtrays have been emptied. Coffee cups have been cleaned. Surfaces have been wiped. The crime scene, if it was a crime scene, has been irrevocably compromised before investigators even arrive. But even with contamination, certain facts remain clear. 3 women are missing. They left without taking anything they would need for even a short trip. Something broke the porch light globe, possibly during a struggle, possibly as a signal, possibly by accident. And somewhere, on an erased answering machine tape, there may have been information that could have explained everything. Sound, police radio chatter, dogs barking, car doors slamming. Within hours, the Springfield Police Department will launch one of the most extensive missing persons investigations in Missouri history. The FBI will join. National media will descend. Thousands of tips will pour in. But 33 years later, investigators are no closer to answering the fundamental question: what happened to the Springfield 3? By Monday, June 8th, just 24 hours after Janice McCall reported the women missing, Springfield, Missouri has transformed from a quiet Ozark city into the center of a national mystery. The Springfield Police Department establishes a command center. The FBI's Kansas City field office sends agents to assist. The Missouri State Highway Patrol joins the effort. Local media coverage is constant. National outlets pick up the story, and the community mobilizes with the fierce urgency that defines small cities when tragedy strikes. The community response. Janice McCall doesn't wait for official channels to spread the word. Within hours of reporting her daughter missing, she's at her computer creating missing persons flyers. She includes photos of all three women, Sherrill, Suzie, and Stacy, along with physical descriptions and contact information for police. She prints hundreds of copies, then thousands. She distributes them to local businesses, asking shop owners to display them in windows. She gives stacks to volunteers who post them on telephone poles, bulletin boards, community centers. She mails them to cities across Missouri and neighboring states. The images of Sherrill, Suzie, and Stacy, frozen in time from happier moments, begin appearing everywhere. In grocery store windows, on gas station doors, taped to telephone poles. For weeks after the disappearance, it's impossible to drive through Springfield without seeing their faces. Media outlets dub them the Springfield Three, a name that will define the case for decades. Volunteers organize search parties. Hundreds of people, friends, neighbors, complete strangers, fan out across Springfield and surrounding areas, looking for any sign of the missing women. They search wooded areas near residential neighborhoods, abandoned buildings, drainage systems. Lake Springfield. Divers search the murky waters, the James River. Rural properties outside city limits. Construction sites. Any location someone suggests might be relevant. But days turn into weeks with no discoveries. No bodies. No clothing. No personal items. Nothing. The investigation expands. Investigators begin the methodical process of building timelines, interviewing witnesses, and examining the lives of the three women for any clue about what might have happened. They interview everyone who was at the graduation parties that night. They track down classmates, friends, acquaintances, co-workers. They look into Sherrill's salon clients. They examine recent events in the women's lives for any indication of threats, conflicts, or dangerous situations. What they find is frustrating in its normalcy. Three ordinary people living ordinary lives with no apparent enemies, no involvement in criminal activity, no obvious reason anyone would want to harm them. Sherrill was a beloved cosmetologist with loyal clients. She had no known conflicts with anyone. Her finances were in order. She wasn't involved in drugs or any illegal activity. She was simply a single mother working hard to provide for her daughter and herself. Suzie worked at a local tanning salon. She was friendly, outgoing, well-liked. Investigators look into her social life, her relationships, her daily routines. Nothing raises red flags. She had dated various people, but had no one threatening her or acting obsessively. She had friends, but no enemies. Stacy was the daughter any parent would want. Responsible, kind, college-bound. She had a clean record, good grades, a bright future ahead of her. There's no indication she was involved in anything risky or dangerous. The lack of obvious motive becomes one of the case's defining frustrations. When people vanish, there's usually a reason: domestic violence, financial disputes, involvement in crime. But here, there's nothing. Just three innocent women who happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. The broken light and the phone calls. Investigators focus on the two tangible clues: the broken porch light globe and the disturbing phone calls received the morning of June 7th. The broken light presents several possible explanations. 1. It was broken during a struggle as someone was taken from the house. 2. It was broken by the perpetrator as they approached, possibly to darken the porch. 3. It was broken accidentally by one of the women. 4. It was broken by someone unrelated to the disappearance. Unfortunately, Mike Henson swept up the glass before police arrived, destroying potential evidence. The glass might have contained fingerprints, blood traces, or other forensic material that could identify who broke it. The phone calls are equally mysterious. Janelle Kirby received 2 calls from an unknown male making sexual remarks while she was in the house around noon on June 7th. Police described the calls as obscene, with the caller using profanity and making inappropriate comments. Were these calls connected to the disappearance? Or were they unrelated, just crude prank calls that coincidentally occurred the same day? The caller is never identified. Phone records from 1992 are limited compared to modern capabilities. Tracking down the source of brief calls is difficult, especially if the caller used a payphone. Police note that Suzie had complained about receiving similar prank calls in the months after moving into the Delmar Street house. This suggests the June 7th calls might be part of an ongoing pattern of harassment rather than directly connected to the abduction. But coincidences in missing persons cases are always suspicious. The timing, calling the house on the exact day the women disappeared, seems too perfect to be random chance. The deleted message. Perhaps the most frustrating aspect of the case is the erased answering machine message. According to reports, Janice McCall listened to a message on the answering machine when she arrived at the house on the evening of June 7th. She later described it as strange, unusual enough that it caught her attention and made her uncomfortable. But answering machines in 1992 typically used cassette tapes that automatically recorded over themselves after messages were played. Some models had a save function, but it wasn't always obvious how to use it. In the stress and confusion of realizing her daughter was missing, Janice either accidentally erased the message or the machine erased it automatically. Police tried to recover the message using available technology, but were unsuccessful. The information, whatever it was, is gone forever. What was on that message? Possibilities include a voice telling the women where to meet or what to do, a threat or warning information about someone's plans, a clue about the perpetrator's identity, or possibly something unrelated that seemed strange only in the context of the disappearance. We'll never know. But investigators and the families have always believed that message could have been the key to solving the case. As the investigation progresses through summer 1992, several individuals draw scrutiny from investigators. It's important to note that being investigated does not indicate guilt. Police must examine anyone with potential connection to the victims or opportunity to commit the crime. Attention on past relationships. Investigators look into individuals who had previously dated Suzie or had connections to the family. One particular individual who drew attention had a criminal history that included grave robbing, a bizarre crime that had occurred months before the disappearance. Suzie had reportedly provided a statement to police regarding this person's activities, leading to theories about possible retaliation. However, authorities conducted extensive interviews and found no evidence linking this individual to the disappearance. The person was eventually cleared through alibi verification and lack of connecting evidence. The obscene caller. Investigators worked to identify the person who made the sexual phone calls to the house on June 7th. They review phone records, interview people who might recognize the voice description, and follow up on tips from the public. The caller is described by witnesses as sounding teenish, possibly a younger person, maybe a teenager or young adult. But despite extensive efforts, the caller's identity is never definitively established. Were the calls connected to the disappearance, or were they simply unfortunate timing? Crude prank calls that happened to occur on the same day 3 women vanished? Police publicly state they don't believe the calls are connected to the abduction, but privately, many investigators remain uncertain. A suspicious phone call to America's Most Wanted. On December 31st, 1992, New Year's Eve, 6 months after the disappearance, a man calls the America's Most Wanted hotline with information about the case. According to Springfield police, the caller had intimate knowledge of what happened to the 3 women. He spoke with confidence and provided details that suggested he knew more than the general public. He claimed the women's bodies would never be recovered. But there was a problem. The caller refused to meet with investigators. He would only speak on the phone, anonymously, from undisclosed locations. When pressed for verifiable information, he became vague or hostile. When asked to meet in person, he declined. Investigators were left in an impossible position. They had someone claiming knowledge of the crime, but no way to verify if the person was telling the truth or simply seeking attention. Calls to the tip line continued sporadically over the years. Sometimes the voice sounded similar to the original caller. Sometimes it was clearly different people. Some callers provided detailed scenarios. Others spoke in riddles. None led to concrete evidence. This pattern, attention-seeking individuals claiming knowledge without proof, would plague the investigation for decades. Investigating the neighborhood. Police canvassed the neighborhood around 1717 East Delmar Street, interviewing residents to determine if anyone saw or heard anything suspicious during the early morning hours of June 7th. The results are frustratingly negative. No neighbors report hearing screams or sounds of struggle. No one saw suspicious vehicles or individuals. No one noticed anything unusual until police arrived later that day. This absence of witnesses is both puzzling and telling. It suggests that whatever happened occurred quietly, without commotion that would alert nearby residents. This points toward either 1. The women left voluntarily with someone they trusted, not realizing they were in danger until it was too late. 2. The perpetrator or perpetrators controlled the situation so effectively that no noise was made. 3. The abduction happened so quickly that there was no time to scream or resist. All three scenarios are disturbing in different ways. The role of the media. National media attention brings both help and hindrance to the investigation. America's Most Wanted features the case multiple times. Unsolved Mysteries airs segments about the Springfield 3. Major networks cover the story. The public fascination is intense. 3 women vanishing without a trace from a locked house captures the imagination in ways that more straightforward crimes don't. But media attention also brings challenges. False leads flood the tip line, requiring investigators to spend time disproving claims. Psychics and self-proclaimed experts offer theories that distract from evidence-based investigation. Families of the missing women face constant media requests, re-traumatizing them repeatedly. The case takes on a sensational quality that sometimes overshadows the human tragedy. By the end of 1992, 6 months after the disappearance, police have conducted hundreds of interviews, followed thousands of tips, and searched countless locations. But they are no closer to finding Sherrill, Suzie, and Stacy than they were on June 7th. The women have vanished completely, as if they never existed, as if the earth opened and swallowed them whole. In the years following the disappearance, one individual repeatedly surfaces in connection with the Springfield 3 case, though authorities have consistently stated they lack sufficient evidence to charge this person with any crime related to the missing women. In the mid-1990s, a man serving time for an unrelated serious crime began making statements to reporters, investigators, and fellow inmates suggesting he had knowledge of what happened to Sherrill, Suzie, and Stacy. According to published reports, this individual was known to have been in the Springfield area around the time of the disappearances. He had a criminal history that included violent offenses, and he seemed to take pleasure in taunting authorities with cryptic comments about the case. In interviews with journalists, he reportedly stated, "I know what happened to them. Their bodies will never be recovered." When pressed for details, he would become vague or contradictory. Sometimes he claimed direct involvement. Other times he suggested he heard about it from others. Sometimes he provided specific details about disposal locations. Other times he admitted he was merely speculating. Investigators conducted extensive interviews with this individual over the years. They attempted to verify his claims. They searched locations he mentioned. They examined his timeline to determine if he had opportunity to commit the crime. According to official statements from the Springfield Police Department, this person's claims have not been corroborated by physical evidence. Authorities believe he may be seeking attention or attempting to manipulate the investigation for reasons unknown. But the question remains, is he lying for attention? Or does he actually know something? Family members of the missing women have expressed frustration that this individual has never been definitively ruled in or out as a suspect. The uncertainty is torturous, not knowing if the person claiming knowledge is telling the truth or simply causing more pain. The torture of false hope. This case has attracted an unusual number of people claiming special knowledge about what happened. Psychics offer visions of where the bodies are buried, leading to searches that find nothing. Anonymous callers provide tips, that turn out to be fabricated. Attention seekers confess to crimes they didn't commit, wasting investigative resources. For the families, particularly Janice McCall and other relatives, each new claim brings a surge of hope, followed by crushing disappointment when the lead proves false. It's psychological torture, repeated over and over across decades. Janice McCall has given countless interviews over the years, always maintaining hope that her daughter Stacy will be found. She attends every press conference, follows up on every tip, refuses to give up even as years become decades. But the emotional toll is evident. In early interviews from the 1990s, she appears determined and optimistic. In later interviews from the 2000s and 2010s, the weight of grief and uncertainty has visibly aged her. By 2020's interviews, she is elderly, her voice weaker, but her determination undiminished. "I still believe we'll find answers," she says in a 2022 interview. Someone knows something. Someone always knows something. The 2007 breakthrough that wasn't. In October 2007, 15 years after the disappearance, a potential breakthrough emerges that will ultimately become one of the most frustrating aspects of the case. A Springfield resident contacts authorities with a theory. What if the women's bodies were buried under a parking garage that was under construction at the time of the disappearance? The location in question, a parking structure at Cox South Hospital in Springfield. The timeline is compelling. The parking garage's foundation was poured in June 1992, the exact month of the disappearance. If someone wanted to hide bodies where they would never be found, burying them under tons of concrete before the structure was completed would be effective. But this wasn't just wild speculation. The person making the claim had additional information suggesting a possible connection between someone involved in the construction and the missing women's case. The ground-penetrating radar scan. At the urging of advocates, journalists, and the families, Springfield police agreed to conduct a ground-penetrating radar (GPR) scan of the parking garage in 2007. GPR technology works by sending electromagnetic pulses into the ground, or in this case, beneath concrete, and analyzing the reflections that bounce back. Different materials produce different signatures. Undisturbed earth looks different from disturbed earth. Voids appear different from solid areas. And yes, human remains produce a distinctive signature. The scan was conducted by professionals with experience in forensic applications. They swept the area methodically, recording data from multiple angles. The results. The GPR scan detected 3 anomalies beneath the parking garage floor. 3 areas where the radar signature indicated something unusual. The anomalies were roughly human-sized, located in close proximity to each other, consistent with disturbed earth, or voids rectangular in shape. In other words, the scan detected what could be 3 burial sites, side by side, exactly where someone might have buried 3 bodies before concrete was poured over them. The discovery seemed almost too perfect. After 15 years of searching, was it possible the women had been under a hospital parking garage the entire time? Forensic experts who reviewed the radar data told police the anomalies warranted further investigation. The only way to know for certain what caused the radar signatures was to excavate, to break through the concrete, and examine what lay beneath. The decision not to excavate. And here's where the case takes one of its most controversial turns. Springfield police, in consultation with hospital administration, decided not to excavate. The reasons cited included cost. Breaking through parking garage floor and then repairing it would be expensive. Disruption. The hospital parking garage serves a vital function. Closing it would impact patients and staff. Uncertainty. The radar anomalies could be many things besides human remains, construction debris, utility lines, naturally occurring voids. Lack of corroborating evidence. Radar alone isn't definitive proof. The decision not to dig sparked immediate outrage. Janice McCall and other family members pleaded with authorities to excavate. They offered to raise money to cover costs. They argued that after 15 years of searching, this was the most credible lead the investigation had ever received. Advocates for missing persons took up the cause. They organized petitions. They held press conferences. They argued that even a small chance of finding the women's bodies outweighed the inconvenience and expense. Journalists covering the case questioned the decision extensively. How could police refuse to follow up on the most promising lead in 15 years? The hospital administration maintained that without definitive proof the women were buried there, they couldn't justify the massive disruption to operations. They also noted liability concerns. If excavation damaged the structural integrity of the parking garage, the safety implications could be severe. Springfield police maintained that the radar evidence, while interesting, wasn't sufficient to warrant excavation given the costs and practical difficulties. They stated that other explanations for the anomalies were more likely than human remains. The controversy continues. To this day, over 15 years after the radar scan, the parking garage has never been excavated. The three anomalies remain buried beneath tons of concrete, their true nature unknown. For family members and advocates, this represents an unforgivable failure. They believe answers are literally under the ground, waiting to be discovered, and authorities are choosing not to look. For police and hospital administration, it represents a difficult decision made with imperfect information. They argue that chasing every theory and possibility, no matter how expensive or disruptive, isn't practical or responsible. The debate has become a defining element of the Springfield 3 case, representing broader questions about how far authorities should go to solve cold cases, how much weight to give unproven theories, and who gets to decide when the potential benefit outweighs the cost. As of 2025, the parking garage stands unchanged. Cars park there every day. Hospital staff and visitors walk across its surface, unaware that beneath them might lie the answer to one of Missouri's most enduring mysteries. Or might lie nothing at all. Without excavation, we'll never know. Theory 1. Wrong place, wrong time. The most prevalent theory among investigators is that the Springfield 3 were victims of circumstance, wrong place, wrong time, targeted by an opportunistic predator who saw vulnerability and acted. Early morning hours of June 7th, Suzie and Stacy arrive at the Delmar Street house around 2:15 a.m. They're young, happy, tired from celebrating. They park their cars, enter through the front door, which Sherrill left unlocked expecting her daughter, and prepare for bed. Sherrill is already asleep in her room. The girls change clothes. Their party outfits are found neatly folded, suggesting they put on pajamas or sleeping clothes. They're settling in for the night when they hear something. Maybe a knock at the door. Maybe someone trying to enter. Maybe the sound of the porch light breaking. Someone is outside. Someone who doesn't belong there. The girls, thinking it might be a friend from the parties or someone they know, open the door or step outside to investigate. The perpetrator gains control of the situation, possibly with a weapon, possibly through surprise, possibly through deception. Sherrill, hearing voices or commotion, comes out of her bedroom to see what's happening. Now all three women are in the same location, vulnerable to a single armed individual who controls the situation through threat of violence. The perpetrator forces them into a vehicle, possibly the perpetrator's own vehicle, possibly one of the women's cars, which were later returned to the house. They're driven to a secondary location where they're killed. Bodies are disposed of in a way that ensures they'll never be found, buried in a remote location, placed in a body of water, hidden on private property. The perpetrator returns to the Delmar Street house to retrieve the car and park it back in the driveway, creating the illusion that the women simply vanished rather than were taken by force. Evidence supporting this theory, no signs of struggle inside the house, suggests control was established quickly, personal belongings left behind, indicates they didn't leave voluntarily, cars returned to the property, suggests perpetrator covered tracks, broken porch light, possible sign of initial confrontation. No witnesses or noise, suggests single perpetrator operating efficiently. Problems with this theory. Why would the women open the door to a stranger at 2 a.m.? How could one person control three women without screaming or commotion? Why return the cars to the house? Risk of being seen? What happened to the bodies? No remains found despite extensive searches? Probability, 40%. This theory is favored by some investigators because it doesn't require complex conspiracy or elaborate planning. Just a dangerous person in the wrong place at the wrong time encountering vulnerable victims. Theory 2. Someone they knew. The second major theory suggests the perpetrator was someone the women knew and trusted, which would explain why they might have opened the door or left voluntarily without obvious signs of struggle. Someone with a connection to one or more of the women, a friend, acquaintance, former romantic partner, client of Sherrill's salon, arrives at the house in the early morning hours with a plausible reason: car trouble, emergency, need for help. The women, recognizing the person and not sensing immediate danger, agree to help. They leave the house voluntarily, perhaps planning to give someone a ride or provide assistance. Once away from the house and in an isolated location, the situation turns violent. The women realize too late that they've been deceived. Evidence supporting this theory. No signs of forced entry or struggle, consistent with voluntary departure. Doors left unlocked. Suggests quick exit with intention to return. No screaming or commotion. Suggests trust initially. Broken porch light. Possibly result of initial encounter. Problems with this theory. Why would all three women leave together to help someone? Why not wake neighbors or call for help if situations seem suspicious? Why leave purses, money, and personal items behind? Who among their acquaintances would be capable of harming all three? Probability, 30%. This theory is compelling because it explains the lack of obvious struggle and the ease with which the perpetrator apparently gained control of multiple victims. But it requires accepting that someone the women trusted was capable of extreme violence. Theory 3. The transient/serial offender. A third theory posits that the women were victims of a transient offender or serial criminal passing through Springfield who saw opportunity and struck. The scenario: an individual with violent criminal history, possibly traveling through Missouri on Interstate 44, which passes near Springfield, spots the house on Delmar Street, sees cars in the driveway, observes young women entering, decides to strike. This type of offender operates opportunistically. They don't carefully plan crimes. They react to circumstances. They carry weapons. They're experienced in controlling victims through intimidation and violence. After abducting the women, the offender leaves Springfield entirely, disposing of bodies far from the crime scene, possibly in another state, possibly in a location familiar to them from previous crimes. Evidence supporting this theory: lack of connection between victims and anyone in Springfield with known violent tendencies, professional execution, minimal evidence left behind, bodies never recovered, suggests sophisticated disposal knowledge. Timing coincides with graduation parties. Lots of young women out late. Problems with this theory: Springfield isn't a major through route for transients. No similar crimes reported in the region before or after. How would transient know about the specific house and its occupants? Why risk abducting multiple victims rather than a single target? Probability, 20%. This theory is less favored by investigators because it requires believing a random stranger happened upon the exact right circumstances to abduct three women without leaving evidence. Theory 4. The parking garage. Finally, there's the theory centered on the hospital parking garage. The idea that the women were killed and buried under construction that occurred immediately after their disappearance. The scenario: someone involved in or connected to the Cox South Hospital parking garage construction has a connection to the case, either as perpetrator or accomplice. After abducting and killing the women, this person uses their access to the construction site to bury the bodies before concrete is poured. The bodies remain hidden for 33 years, detected only by ground-penetrating radar, but never excavated. Evidence supporting this theory: timeline matches. Construction occurred June 1992. GPR detected 3 human-sized anomalies. Burial under concrete would explain why bodies never found. Someone with construction access could execute this plan. Problems with this theory: based primarily on radar data, not hard evidence, would require advanced planning. Opportunistic crime doesn't fit with construction access. No confirmed connection between victims and construction workers. Police have stated they don't find this theory credible. Probability: 10%. This theory has captured public imagination because of the dramatic radar evidence, but investigators are skeptical. Without excavation, it remains unproven and controversial. The families never stopped. The passage of 33 years has transformed the Springfield 3 case from breaking news to cold case to historical mystery. The world has changed dramatically since June 1992. The Internet revolution, 9/11, smartphones, social media, COVID-19. But for the families of Sherrill, Suzie, and Stacy, time stopped on June 7, 1992. Janice McCall was 41 years old when her daughter disappeared. She is now 74, and she has never stopped searching. In the early years, she was consumed by the investigation. She made thousands of copies of missing persons flyers. She gave interviews to every journalist who asked. She followed up on every tip personally. She attended every court hearing related to persons of interest. She was determined that her daughter's case would not fade into obscurity. As years became decades, that determination never wavered, but the toll became visible. In interviews from the 2000s, Janice speaks about the physical and emotional exhaustion of carrying hope for so long. She describes nightmares about her daughter calling for help that she cannot answer. She talks about the guilt of living a full life, while Stacy's life stopped at 18. But she also talks about refusing to give up. Every April 23rd, Stacy's birthday, Janice bakes a cake, the same tradition she maintained when Stacy was alive. She puts 19 candles on it, then 20, then 30, now over 50, marking the birthdays Stacy should have celebrated but never did. She keeps Stacy's bedroom largely unchanged, a shrine to a girl who never got to grow into the woman she should have become. Photographs line the walls, Stacy as a baby, as a child, as a teenager. Always smiling, always bright with life that was stolen from her. Janice has never moved from Springfield. She refuses to leave, fearing that if she does, she might miss the call that brings news about Stacy. She stays tethered to the city where her daughter vanished, waiting for closure that may never come. In recent years, her health has declined. She suffers from conditions exacerbated by decades of stress. But when asked if she'll ever stop hoping, her answer is always the same. Never. Someone knows something. Someone always knows something. The community remembers. Springfield, Missouri has never forgotten the Springfield 3, even as the world around it changed. Every June 7th, there are memorial gatherings for the missing women. Local news stations run anniversary stories. Social media groups dedicated to the case remain active, with amateur sleuths sharing theories and discussing evidence. A bench in a Springfield park bears a plaque commemorating Sherrill, Suzie, and Stacy. It reads simply, "Gone but not forgotten. Bring them home." Local cold case advocates have made the Springfield 3 a centerpiece of their efforts to improve resources for missing persons investigations. They point to the contaminated crime scene, the delayed response, the failure to preserve the answering machine message, all examples of mistakes that could be avoided with better training and protocols. The case has inspired changes in how Missouri handles missing persons cases. Response times have improved. Evidence preservation protocols have been updated. The lessons learned from what went wrong in June 1992 have helped other families avoid the same frustrations. But these improvements don't bring back Sherrill, Suzie, and Stacy. They don't answer the question that has haunted Springfield for 33 years. What happened? The psychological toll. Extended family members and friends of the missing women have also carried this burden for decades. Suzie's father, though separated from Sherrill, has lived with the loss of his daughter and the mother of his child. Unable to bury them, unable to find closure, unable to move forward. Friends who graduated with Suzie and Stacy have grown into middle age, having careers and families and lives that their two classmates never got to experience. Some describe survivors' guilt. Why did they go home that night when Suzie and Stacy didn't? What if they'd convinced their friends to stay at Janelle's house instead of going to Delmar Street? Janelle Kirby herself has struggled with the knowledge that she was supposed to be with her friends that night. If the sleeping arrangements at her family's house had been different, if she'd gone to Delmar Street with them, she might be missing too. Or her presence might have changed the outcome entirely. The ripple effects of this case extend far beyond the three direct victims. Dozens of people carry trauma, guilt, and grief related to that night. And unlike crimes where the perpetrator is caught and justice is served, there's no resolution to begin healing. Where the case stands today. As of 2025 to 33 years after the disappearance, the Springfield 3 case remains officially open and unsolved. The current investigation. The Springfield Police Department maintains a cold case file on the disappearance. A detective is assigned to periodically review the case and follow up on new tips that come in, though tips have become increasingly rare as decades pass. The FBI continues to list Sherrill, Suzie, and Stacy in their missing persons database. Their photographs, now decades old, remain in circulation, though updated with age progression images showing what they might look like today if they're somehow still alive. No one seriously believes they're alive. The lack of contact, the absence of any trace for 33 years, the circumstances of their disappearance, all point toward death shortly after June 7, 1992. Modern technology and the case. Advances in forensic technology since 1992 could theoretically help solve this case, if there was physical evidence to test. DNA analysis has advanced exponentially. What required large samples in 1992 can now be done with microscopic traces. Forensic genealogy, the technique that caught the Golden State Killer, could potentially identify perpetrators through distant relatives. But these technologies require evidence: blood, hair, skin cells, anything containing genetic material. The Springfield 3 case has none. The crime scene was contaminated before forensic teams could properly process it. No bodies have been found. There's nothing to test. Digital forensics could analyze phone records, financial transactions, surveillance footage, but in 1992, these systems were primitive or non-existent. Cell phones were rare. Security cameras uncommon. Electronic payment trails limited. The case exists in a frustrating gap, too modern to be solved with traditional detective work alone, but too old to benefit from digital evidence that simply didn't exist in 1992. The question of the parking garage. The 2007 ground-penetrating radar scan of the Cox South Hospital parking garage remains the most controversial aspect of modern investigation efforts. Advocates for excavation continue to push authorities to dig up the area where anomalies were detected. They argue that GPR technology is reliable when interpreted by experts. The anomalies are consistent with human remains. 3 anomalies matching 3 victims is too specific to be coincidence. Families deserve closure, even if it requires expense and disruption. Opponents of excavation argue that GPR detects many things besides human remains. Excavating based on unverified radar data sets a dangerous precedent. The cost, estimated at $150,000 to $300,000, is prohibitive. The disruption to hospital operations could endanger patients. Other theories are equally or more probable. As of 2025, no excavation has occurred. The parking garage stands intact, and the debate continues. New leads in recent years. Occasionally, new tips still come in. Someone claims to have heard a deathbed confession. Someone recalls seeing something suspicious in June 1992, but never reported it at the time. Someone has a theory about a person who has since died. Each tip is investigated to the extent possible, but with 33 years past, verifying information is nearly impossible. Witnesses have died. Memories have faded. Physical evidence has degraded or been destroyed. In 2020, the Springfield Police Department announced they were reviewing the case with fresh eyes, applying modern investigative techniques to old evidence. They encouraged anyone with information, no matter how insignificant it might seem, to come forward. The review yielded no breakthroughs. The case remains as mysterious in 2025 as it was in 1992. The statistical reality. Cold case experts note that missing persons cases grow exponentially harder to solve as time passes. After 48 hours, solving becomes difficult. After 1 year, solving becomes unlikely. After 10 years, solving requires extraordinary luck or new technology. After 30-plus years, solving is statistically improbable without confession or accidental discovery. The Springfield 3 case has passed all these thresholds. Statistically, it will likely never be solved unless someone with direct knowledge confesses bodies are accidentally discovered during construction or development. A deathbed confession leads to verifiable information. Advanced technology allows testing of evidence in new ways. None of these outcomes seem likely in 2025. Remembering who they were 33 years after they vanished, it's easy to think of Sherrill, Suzie, and Stacy only as the Springfield 3, a case file, a mystery, a tragedy. But they were people. Sherrill Levitt. Sherrill loved butterflies. Her friends remember her collecting butterfly-themed decorations for her home. She was talented at her craft, transforming women's hair with skill and creativity. She was working to create a stable, beautiful home for herself and her daughter, the home they both deserved. She never got to finish renovating that house. The armoire she planned to varnish sat untouched after June 6th, a project frozen in time. If Sherrill had lived, she would be 80 years old today. She might have grandchildren from Suzie. She might have retired, traveled, enjoyed the life she worked so hard to build. Suzie Streeter. Suzie's friends remember her laugh, loud, uninhibited, joyful. They remember how she could make anyone feel welcome, how she lit up rooms just by entering them. She loved music, dancing, spending time with people she cared about. Her graduation from high school was supposed to be the beginning of her adult life. She might have gone to college, started a career, fallen in love, built a family. Instead, she disappeared within hours of receiving her diploma. Her entire adult life, stolen before it could begin. Stacy McCall. Stacy was responsible, thoughtful, the daughter who always called when she said she would. She had plans for college. She wanted to make her parents proud. She had that rare quality of being both reliable and fun, someone her friends could count on, but also someone who knew how to enjoy life. Her 18th birthday in April 1992 was a celebration of becoming an adult. She had 2 months of adulthood before someone took it all away. June 7, 1992. 3 women in Springfield, Missouri, a mother and 2 daughters celebrating graduation, vanished from a locked house with no signs of struggle, taking nothing with them, leaving behind only questions that would haunt a community for over 3 decades. The answering machine message that might have solved everything, erased before police could hear it. The ground-penetrating radar detecting 3 anomalies under a parking garage, never excavated. The tips, theories, confessions, and claims, all leading nowhere. 33 years. 5,000 plus tips investigated. Multiple persons of interest. Extensive searches. National media coverage. FBI involvement. And still, no bodies, no definitive answers, no justice. Someone knows what happened. Statistics tell us that. Few crimes are truly solo operations. Even if one person committed this crime, someone else likely knows something, saw something, heard something, was told something. That person might be watching this video right now. If you have any information about the Springfield 3, even details that seem insignificant, please contact Springfield Police Department, 417-864-1810 FBI Kansas City, 816-512-8200. Tips can be anonymous. For Sherrill Levitt. For Suzie Streeter. For Stacy McCall. For Janice McCall, who has waited 33 years. For all the families still searching for answers. Bring them home. Unsolved. Unforgotten. And buried under silence no one will break. 3 women vanished from a locked house. The message that could have solved it was erased. The radar says they're under a hospital. Police refuse to dig. Share this video. The Springfield 3 deserve to be remembered, and their families deserve answers. Subscribe to Cold Case Dossier for more cases where justice was delayed but never denied. Next episode, a Boy Scout camping trip, a UFO sighting, and one scout who disappeared 3 days later, never to be seen again. For Sherrill, Suzie, and Stacy. For the families still waiting.